Friday, November 1st, 1940. The Italian forces invading Greece faced stiff resistance from the Greek army. The Regia Aeronautica bombs the cities of Salonika and Larissa in the northeast of the country, Athens, and the island of Corfu in the Ionian Sea off the northeast coast of Epirus, where the march of Mussolini's armies has been stalled by the Greeks along the Kalamis River. The Italian troops have managed to achieve most of their objectives, but they are now exhausted and without supplies. The Air Force has played only a minor part in their attempt to imitate the Germans' blitzkrieg tactics. In the Battle of Britain, the Luftwaffe continues its attacks on London. The RAF, meanwhile, in spite of bad weather, bombs Berlin and the industrial areas of Naples in southern Italy. Despite its cooperation agreement with Britain, the Turkish government stresses its desire to stay out of the war. In northern Africa, Italian forces with British troops in Egypt, west of Sidi El Barani, 95 kilometers from the Libyan border, while the RAF engages the Italian Air Force in the air. In the Battle of the Atlantic, U-124, captained by Commander George Wilhelm Schultz, sinks the British merchant ship Empire Bison. Saturday, November 2nd. In Cleveland, Ohio, President Roosevelt declares in an election campaign speech that he will not hesitate to provide American help to all countries attacked by Germany and Italy. The Republican presidential candidate, Wendell Willkie, agrees with the Democrats on this issue and, addressing his supporters in New York's Madison Square Garden, announces the determination of Americans to aid the heroic resistance of the British people. In Greece, the Italians' advance towards Ionia continues to meet stiff Greek resistance in the area of the Kalamis River. In view of these problems, the Italian Air Force is ordered to continue bombing major Greek cities. Meanwhile, British troops start arriving on the island of Crete. In the Mediterranean, the island of Malta suffers its heaviest bombing yet from the Italian Air Force. In the Battle of Britain, the Luftwaffe attacks London and some airfields in southern England. For its part, the RAF bombs the railway lines of Berlin, the oil refineries of Magdeburg, and the Krupp armament factories at Essen. In the Sea War, the British Admiralty announces the loss of its ships, the Hickory and Lord Inchcape, while U-31 becomes the first vessel to be sunk twice after being sent to the bottom off the Irish coast by the destroyer HMS Antelope. Sunday, November 3rd. After 57 consecutive days of heavy bombing, the city of London has a quiet night. It is now evident that the Germans have been unable to break British air defenses, and their hopes that the Battle of Britain would only last a couple of weeks have faded. In Germany, there is widespread anger among the citizens of Berlin, who are forced to spend many hours during the night in air raid shelters. The RAF continues its retaliatory bombings, striking the naval base of Kiel in Germany, the industries of the Italian city of Naples, and the port of Flushing, and the airfield at Soesterberg in the Netherlands. the Australian government increases its involvement in the war by sending the destroyer Heineck to Greece, where the Italian armies are finding it difficult to achieve their objectives. Mussolini's sons, Bruno and Vittorio, and his son-in-law foreign minister, Count Galeazzo Ciano, take part in the bombing raids against Greek cities. In the Battle of the Atlantic, U-99, commanded by Otto Kretschmer, sinks freighter Casanare off the coast of Britain and the auxiliary cruisers HMS Laurentic and HMS Patrocius. Monday, November 4th. In the Battle of Britain, the Luftwaffe sends planes to attack the Rolls-Royce engine factory in Hillington, Glasgow. Churchill's government decides to substitute Air Marshal Richard Pearse as head of the air staff by Vidford Freeman. Pearse is put in charge of Bomber Command. The British Admiralty makes public the loss of the auxiliary cruisers Laurentic and Patrocius, and also the Tilburynus. In Greece, the Italians attempt to fulfill their planned objectives for the first phase of the invasion by taking over the region of Epirus, with a view to subsequently launching a second offensive against Athens and the rest of the country. However, bad weather conditions, the rough terrain, and a shortage of troops thwart Mussolini's ambitions. The Spanish government assumes total control over the region of Tangier in Morocco. Faced with the protests of Sir Samuel Hoare, British ambassador in Madrid, the Spanish promise that the area will remain strictly neutral. The Turkish government orders the draft of all men between 21 and 40. In the United States, the presidential elections are coming up. The Gallup Institute opinion polls point to the re-election of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Tuesday, November 5th. In the Battle of the Atlantic, the German battleship Admiral von Scheer attacks the Allied convoy HX-84, sailing to Britain from Halifax, Nova Scotia in Canada. The Kriegsmarine warship rams and sinks the cruiser HMS Jervis Bay, the only ship escorting the convoy. 189 crew members die. After destroying 5 more ships, the German battleship leaves without aiding the survivors. The British Admiralty temporarily suspends the convoy system and sends a Royal Navy squadron to hunt down the Admiral von Scheer. Meanwhile, U-99, commanded by Otto Kretschmer, sinks the tanker Scottish Maiden. In London, Prime Minister Winston Churchill addresses the House of Commons and announces that a naval and air base has been established in the island of Crete in the Aegean Sea, from which RAF bombers have been carrying out constant attacks against military targets in Italy. More than 14,900 civilians have been killed and 20,000 have been wounded in German bombing raids on Britain to date. Even so, the Nazis are losing 10 men for each British Army casualty and 3 planes for each RAF aircraft shot down. More than 50 million Americans participate in the presidential elections, giving a landslide victory to Franklin D. Roosevelt and providing some unwelcome news for Hitler and his regime. Wednesday, November 6th. In Greece, the Greek army makes progress against the Italians. There is heavy fighting in the area to the south of Lake Prespam, while the Italian Air Force bombs the cities of Ioannina, Navarino, Piraeus, and Argostoli on the island of Kefalonia. Mussolini blames his generals for allowing the rapid Greek advance, in particular Pietro Badoglio, the chief of the High Command, calling him a traitor for not agreeing with the decision to invade Greece. In Germany, General Alfred Jodl, Chief of Staff of the Wehrmacht and an advisor on strategy to Hitler, puts an end to all plans relating to the invasion of Great Britain from Northern Europe. The British Security Service intercepts Jodl's orders and informs Churchill. Nonetheless, the Luftwaffe continues to attack London and the ports and railway lines of southern England. For its part, the RAF bombs the fuel storage facilities at Emden and the shipyards of Bremerhaven in northeast Germany. Churchill's government welcomes the success of Roosevelt in the elections. However, the German press comments that the American president's true intentions will be revealed in the near future. In Japan, Roosevelt's re-election is seen in a very negative light. Since the start of the war at sea, the Germans have sunk more than 7 million tons of Allied shipping.